Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to the Year in Review special for the Gaming Decathlon competition and for the channel in general. We open up with some channel analytics. I went from 761 subs New Year's Eve a year ago to 1,890 this year. That's an increase of almost 250%, 2.5 times the size a year ago. That's a pretty significant jump. It was a good year. Views went from 163,000 over the first 2 years in the life of the channel to 515,000 this year. Increased 313%. That is a sign that my retention rates went up a lot this year. I didn't just increase the size of the channel, but that viewership went up a lot. I put out similar number of videos this year as I did the previous year, but those views went up more in proportion to the sub count. Hours watched, similar number, and also trending in the right direction, 21,000 to 75,000, 350% increase. And for this one, it's a little more significant because I went from 60-minute videos when I first started the channel. Last year I was doing mostly about 40 to 45-minute videos. This year I streamlined that a little bit more, edited things down a lot. I got so much better at editing. I barely did any in the previous year. Now every single video is edited. About 28 minutes is my average video now. Shorter videos, yet the watch time has gone up. Small pat on the back for myself in improving the quality of the content, and it's showing up in the numbers. Most viewed video, though, this one's slightly disappointing. A year ago, it was 16.8 thousand for Rebel Inc. Escalation premiere episode number 1. It's the same video this year. 3,000 more views than it had at the end of last year. It was a video that premiered late summer a year ago. It was a series that was still running at the turn of the year. Continued on through January, maybe into February this year. It added 3,000 views. The only downside is that nothing from this year was able to overtake that. My top video for this year, about 15,000, and that came out this summer. So 15,000 in just a handful of months. Well, that's good. I mean, Rebel Inc. came out summer, 16,000 a year ago. So similar number count. But the channel's so much bigger than it was. I didn't have that spike similar to what I had last year. We'll come back to that one a little later in this year in review. But we move on to the games overall. So this is kind of what I've done this year and overall in the history of the channel. Series played. A year ago, there was 29 series that I started up and ran at some point during the year. Of course, Decathlon Gamer, supposed to be 10 series, and when I first started it was 10 series, 1 video per week. Eventually that changed into 10 series with some of them having a couple videos a week to where I was doing about 14 overall. I still do about 14 overall. Last year for a little while I tried pushing that a little higher and got up to almost 20 videos a week, almost 3 per day, and oh my goodness, that was time consuming. 29 series played a year ago, 38 this year. So I was a little quicker at pulling the trigger on, this one's not working. I'm going to move on to the next one. Or, this one's not fun anymore. Overall, whole history of the channel, that's 69 series that have appeared. That is not counting one-off or 2 or 3 episode first looks, not counting those. Independent titles, meaning the specific games that have appeared on the channel. Of course, some of my games have multiple series. Pro Cycling Manager is a great example. 24 a year ago, 27 this year, 52 in the history of the channel. Game studios that have featured, 17 a year ago, up to 27 now. That's lifetime. The most featured studio a year ago was 6. This year, it's now up to 10. That's Cyanide Studios. It's all Pro Cycling Manager, but it's the various series that I do, from career mode to the Pro Cyclist mode to modded series like the Women's Tour. The longest series ever running in terms of episodes was 122 a year ago. That same series added 4 more episodes, wrapping up at the end of January this year. That was Motorsport Manager. That was technically more than one series, though. Lumped together. If you're looking at an individual straight up, here's just one series. The current career mode for Pro Cycling Manager 2020 is at 113 as of today, I believe it is. Today will be episode 113, so for the year, 112 episodes. Shortest series a year ago was 6 episodes. Previous year was also 6. This year, just 5 episodes for Ancestor Legacy. Hard game, slow game. No tutorial of any kind. It's a go out there and figure it out yourself. And it was so much fun for the first episode of the... oh, here's the world. And then, oh gosh, this thing just drags on like there's no tomorrow. It gets so boring so fast. So I called it an end after 5 episodes, even though there was plenty of viewership. Just not a fun game after a couple hours. On to game statistics. The highest scoring game all time. Of course, I do the Decathlon of gaming, and that includes 1,000 points per game possible, though a few games can exceed that in certain ways. Adds together to resemble the Olympic Decathlon and 10,000 points. The highest scoring individual game a year ago was 983. This year it's 1,002. That is Pro Cycling Manager 2019's Stage Racer, my Pro Cyclist mode. The game completion of the all-time top 10 a year ago was at 64%. This year it's at 87% on the average completion. Now that would basically amount to a score of 870 as an average across that top 10. Of course, that's 100.2% for that PCM 19 Stage Racer. Best week score a year ago, 3,257 points. That's the combination of the 10 active series or the latest series. If there's, say, 7 active series, the last 3 that were retired, that score stays in there until it gets replaced by a new active series. This year, the best week score, 4,648. That's the best all time. That was week 8 of this year. The worst week, the opposite end of it. Last year, the lowest we scored was 1,402. This year, a little bit lower, 1,320 was week 28. There was quite a few new games that featured and seasons that had ended the week before and then reset. So there was a bunch of things that dropped down to nothing. Virtual best, the landmarks. So that's that combination of those top 10 games. That's that game completion, right? 87% right now would be 870 across 10 games. So 8,700. Part 2 of the stats, our virtual best weekly gain. A year ago, we gained 37.7 points per week on average. This year, surprisingly, that increased to 44.5. Now, here's why that's surprising. The closer you get to perfection, the harder it is, generally, to make improvements. Whereas before, let's say if 10th place was 600, all you needed was 601 points to get on the list. If 10th place is 700, you need 701 points to get on the list. You have to be 70% complete versus 60% complete. It's easier to get to 60% completed in a game than it is to get closer to fully complete. To actually have that increase this year was a little bit surprising, especially because the back half of the year, it really did start to slow down, which meant the front half of the year, there was a lot of rapid gains in that top 10. The average weekly score a year ago was 2,194. This year, 3,303 points. So pretty hefty improvement there. The biggest gain, a little worse this year than last year. I gained 876 points in a single week from one week to the next. This year, it was only 741. That was week 41, improving to 4,300 from 35 the week before. The biggest drop, the opposite of that, a year ago, 755 points lost in a single week. This year, 1,458 lost in a single week. That was week 27 to week 28. Week 28 was that lowest score week where we had all those new games. You can see how significant that drop was. Finally, we move on to the game awards. This is the big one, and this is the one that is contributed by the community. Game of the Year award. No surprise, the staple of the channel is Pro Cycling Manager. A year ago, for the first time, it was voted on as the Game of the Year, PCM 19. 64% voted for it, though. Rebel Inc. picked up nearly 30% by itself. It was a real competitor. This year, though, hands down, one game at the top, our steady staple, PCM 20, with 85% of the votes. At one point, it actually had nearly 95%. Viking Way was the main competitor in that one that made a dent into that. Worst game a year ago was Rebel Cops. This year, easy choice. One episode, did not count it as a series, but one episode for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Absolute broken mess. The game was buggier than anything that I've played in ages. You'd play for 2 minutes and it would crash. Play for 4 minutes and it would crash. And I very quickly discovered that that was a problem for lots and lots and lots of people. Others, game worked just fine. By the way, I never featured it on the channel because I had no intention of doing so, because I feared that what happened was exactly what was going to happen, and it was the style of game that I'm just not into. But I gotta give a shout out for worst game of the year overall, Cyberpunk. 9 years they worked on that game, and it is barely playable. It is as buggy as early Grand Theft Autos were, and that's all the game is. It's Grand Theft Auto with better graphics, at least in my opinion. That's what it is. I know that's not the most popular opinion, but there are plenty of people who would agree. I watched some content on it, and it's exactly what I feared was going to happen with that game. 9 years in production. A lot of people were like, well, what if they just waited and didn't succumb to the pressure and put it out? 9 years, people. It was already nearly a decade. If you haven't figured it out by then, you're never gonna figure it out. They put it out to make money. The most fun, this is never the most popular game. This is my personal favorite to play. Last year, that was Transport Fever 2. This year, SnowRunner. Love SnowRunner, but it drags on for a viewer. You can only watch so much of it as a viewer. And I was so bad at it early on. It's a game that I played for a long time, put out tons of episodes in a very short period of time. I played it for a month and put out 35, 40 episodes. I mean, there was at least one episode every day because I just played and recorded while I was at it and put it out. Only edited a few. I should have done so much more editing and it might have been better. Time lapses at times I started using when I got stuck somewhere that took me like half an hour to move 100 feet. I should have done that more frequently, and that series might have done better with the community, but I picked it up again recently, playing with my dad. My dad's retired and can't do the things he used to do, so I got him into playing games as a hobby. Playing SnowRunner with him, it's a lot of fun multiplayer. It is such a fun game to play. Not as fun to watch. Most popular game a year ago, Rebel Inc. This year, PCM 20 hands down. I mean, the viewership is much higher there than anywhere else. My career mode series in particular has been a popular one. Set up a very challenging situation that is still very challenging to this day, even though we're 112 episodes, going on 113 episodes in. But I'm progressing, and the viewership hasn't really dropped off at all since about episode 5 or 6. It's stayed there ever since. Saddest moment, year ago, FM 20. FM was one of my primary staples: Motorsport Manager, PCM, and FM. Those were my 3 big games when the channel started. I took a little break for the first time, stopped FM 19 when viewers really dropped, and I needed a break. I started up on FM 20, expecting to pick up where I left off, and the viewers didn't come back. This year, the CPU death. Channel was down for almost 3 weeks at the worst possible time. I get 2 large spikes per year, and that is the release day for Pro Cycling Manager, and then throughout the course of the Tour de France. That CPU death and waiting, it was a brand new AMD Ryzen 9 3900X. Brand new. It was 3 weeks old and it died. It was brand new, so therefore I had the warranty, and the warranty was served, but it took 2.5 weeks to get a new one. The old CPU and motherboard and all the parts that went with it had already gone to my nephew, was already installed on his computer, so I wasn't about to take those back as a temporary, and the channel was almost completely shut down for that 2.5 weeks. And it was right in the middle of the Tour de France. Really bad timing on that one because I completely missed my other spike of the year where I add a lot of new subscribers and get increased view counts over that period of time. That's it for the year in review special. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like button. Thank you for your support. If you haven't done so, so many of the viewers are still not yet subscribers. If you're a regular viewer, by now, if you've been watching over 100 episodes of Pro Cycling Manager, you should hit subscribe by now. It would really help me out. I'd appreciate that. Have a good one. Have a wonderful 2021. F you 2020. Let's leave that thing behind. Here's the thing. Things aren't going to change for a while yet, though. Okay, let's have some realistic expectations in that. Let reality sink in for a moment. But here's to a better 2021 than 2020 was. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.